perpetuating it. I attended the Highland Games out in Hong Kong in the mid-90s with a very fine Doric-speaking athlete called Gordon Martin, who'd never been out of Connecticut. And Chris Patton was the governor of Hong Kong at that time, and there was a formal dinner. And poor Gordon landed beside Lady Lavender Patton. Now, Gordon was really ill at ease. Well, when it came to the sweet course, it was cherry pavlova. And did Lavender not drop a cherry on her fine dress? And she turned to Gordon and said, "I do hope these stains come out." And Gordon said, "I bloody well hope so, I've just swallowed 3. It's quite rare nowadays to get some of the young lads speaking the Doric, but when I was at Glencore Grain, we interviewed a young guy from up in the north for a job as a trader. There was only myself and 3 English guys on the board. This lad came in and he spoke with a rattle, and his name was Alexander Brockie. And I said, "Well, tell us about yourself." Well, he says, "I'm called Alexander Brockie, and I was very clever at the squeal, and I was kent as Brecht Brockie." So I conveyed this to the other 2 or 3, and they said, "Well, ask Mr. Brockie about his family." Well, he says, "My breeder, he's a coal merchant in Bodham, and he's kent as Bracket Brockie. My father, he's a steam mason in Peterheath, and he's kent as Bracky Brockie. And my mother, she cans vegetables at Crossed Blackwell's, and she's kent as a broccoli Brockie." So I was able to convey this to them and listen for a while, and I said, "Ask Mr. Brockie where they were all brought up." Well, he says, "That's me, Brett Brockie, Broccoli Brockie, Bracket Brockie, and Bracky Brockie. We're all brocht up," he said, "in a boerich, a bochts, and a broch." So I was able to convey then that the Brockie family had been brought up in a small confusion of architecturally challenged houses in the Royal Borough of Fraserburgh. He didn't get the job. Now, as Ian quite rightly said, Burns was very, very popular with the lasses. So it's quite appropriate that we should have a toast to the lasses here at the Burns supper tonight. So I'm delighted to welcome John Medlock, well known amongst the lasses in his early days in the How of the Mearns. Born and brought up at the Mains of Hackerton, married to Carol with 2 sons and 1 grandchild, an organic farmer, many acres of organic crops, large flocks of organic chickens, herds of organic cattle, and of course he's also got the oatmeal of Abhab. This ensures me that I get £20. 01561 377 356. John and Carol have worked very well with marketing this unique product. It's now gluten-free, and you can get it in many stores around the countryside. John, too, is a very loyal community man, serving in many local groups, including Villages of Control, member of the Federated Burns Club, Federated Show, a director of the Grassett Gibbons Centre. So it's real fortuitous tonight that Carol isn't here, because this lets John really open up. Ladies and gentlemen, to shoot straight from the heart and from the hip, welcome John Medlock.
I could go there. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim's in for a bit of a disappointment, and those of you that are feeling cold will be pleased about what I'm going to say, because I have been reliably informed that anybody making a toast at a Burns supper, the length of the toast should last no longer than it takes the chairperson to make love. That's it. I'm not the chairperson. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope to propose the toast to the lassies with justice, as I am no chicken. I've left them all tucked up in bed. And indeed it is a brave man who speaks of the lassies. And Burns was was a man after my own heart. He was passionate about democracy and the rights of man. He was a man not so much in touch with his feminine side, but in touch with as many feminine sides as possible. Following on from the immortal memory, which was fashioned so succinctly and with such eloquence by Ian, I too would like to add homage to the outstanding bard's work. Actually, it comes from an even higher authority, Hugh MacDermott, who chose just one line of all Burns's poetry, "Ye are nae Mary Morrison." Just that. He was love-struck by this one girl. He was smitten by her, and her alone. And being a woman, did she respond? No, you ladies never do. You pick up and choose on your own volition. And may I also add that Hugh MacDermott wrote that mere nonsense has been uttered in the name of Robert Burns than anything else. Burns should have known about the fickleness of the other sex instead of hankering after Mary Morrison, because after all, she was just 19 and he was 30 when he wrote the line. Speaking of beauty, a beautiful but naked and drunk lady gets into a cab in London. The cab driver does not start his cab and turns round. She says, "Have you never seen a naked lady before?" "I'm not staring at you, lady. I'm just wondering where you've kept the money to pay the fare." The moral of this being you must always assess the repayment capacity before taking the exposure. As Ian said, we're just remembering the 50th anniversary of Churchill's funeral. And on the 21st of July, 1796, all but destitute and in debt, Burns died. But did you know that on the 25th of July, he too was buried with full military honours, as Jean Armour gave birth to their son, Maxwell. Now, Burns could not have attained the status he has so long enjoyed were it not for the fact he was surrounded by remarkable women. And indeed, aren't we all? But there are some remarkable men. A man robs a bank and takes hostages. He asks the first hostage, "Did you see me rob the bank?" The robber turns round and shoots him. He then asks the second hostage, "Did you see me rob the bank?" No, but my wife did." Ladies, I have to admit that we men have many flaws. And if truth were told, we don't have a hell of a lot of uses. However, it has to be said that we take great pleasure in those few and practice them at every opportunity. How we compensate for our weaknesses is our important strength. We pay our ladies great attention, and men are encouraged by you ladies to listen. This is something that doesn't come easy to us men, and we have now developed a technique of giving the impression of listening. And it also helps disguise what we are really thinking about, which is really very interesting. Now, us men are famous for only being able to do one thing at one time. And this was explained by Robin Williams, who said that God gave men a brain and a penis, but he only gave them enough blood for one to work at one time. Back to Burns. At times he was a lover, and at others he was a lecher. And at times he was a romantic, and at others he was a realist. But I think, most of all, he was a romantic. And the one poem that sums all this up was "Oh, Were I on Parnassus Hill," which he wrote as a compliment to Mrs. Burns, Jean Armour. "Then come, sweet muse, inspire my lay, for all the lang summer's day, I couldna sing, I couldna say, how much, how dear I love thee. I see thee dancing o'er the green, thy waist sae gimp, thy limbs so clean, thy tempting lips, thy roguish een, by heaven and earth, I love thee." A few years ago, my love Carol, I can say that because she's not here, was visiting our eldest son in America and found herself in an Indian reserve. And she met a very handsome chief, all dressed up in his buffalo and feathers, and by his side was the most beautiful squaw she'd ever seen, with long bronzed limbs and dark hair. "Oh, what a lovely lady that is," Carol said. That is my wife, he said very proudly. She's delightful, Carol thought, and wondered what her name was. The chief must have read her mind, and she is called Three Horses. She gets her name because she goes nag, nag, nag. Now, gentlemen, where would we be without the lassies? So please, all of you, join me and raise your glass.
Well, thank you very much, John Medlock. Well done. A very, very brave toast tonight with Carol Martia. Well done indeed, well done indeed.